Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of our Sunday show album homework assignment. And we got our two combatants, co captains, working together. They've given each other their assignments, both from our very own show here on the channel called The Guitarist Corner. We've got Jim, Bacchi, and Guitar Hack. What's going on, guys?
What's happening?
Uh,
Not
you
much,
know,
man. Just getting ready to talk some music. I got a lot to say about this record. So,
Oh, okay.
well, that's good. That's good. Well, Hack, since you have so much to say, we're going to have you start off today. So, what were you given by Jim as your assignment? What have you been listening to for the last couple of weeks?
Jim gave me an album by a band called Silverjet that I'd never heard of, and the record is
Silverjet.
called "Pull Me Up, Drag Me Down," right? And I was, because the first time I did this, I got a record that I wasn't thrilled with, but this one, man, this one was really really cool. Yeah, like I love the record. It's very much a record of its time. Came out what, Jim, like 97, 98, around that
Right
time.
around there, yeah, late 90s, mid.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm hearing like Weezer, Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, and some sort of pop punk stuff, kind of, But the whole record is just a really good example of songs of that time, really well crafted. Performances are off the charts, and an absolute buffet of hooks. Like every song is just filled with hooks, man. Like it just grabs you like instantly. So what I did is I kind of real quick, just a couple little notes, song by song. Um, first track on the record is a song called Master Plan. That's the most punky of the songs. I almost get like a little bit of like early Elvis Costello kind of like pump it up kind of vibe from it. Again, super tight. Vocals are great. Bass is really cool on it. I love when the bass takes like the main rhythm and the dynamics it adds, which they do that in this song. It's just it's what Green Day wish they could be. I'm not a Green Day, but they just absolutely nailed it on that song. Really, really punky, but very, very poppy and filled with hooks.
Can't be on here right now.
The
Sorry
second
about
one,
that.
sorry, Joe.
Sorry about that. I got my dad and brother always FaceTime me right now, so I was like, texted my brother and told them don't, and they did anyway. So sorry about that. Sorry for the
That's all right,
interruption.
My
man.
mother does it to me all the time. Yeah, I get it.
The second song is Plastique. I believe that was the single. Again, super hooky. This is totally STP sounding to me. It's got a very very cool. There's very very cool riffs. I love the guitar playing on this. This was the time when solos were not to be played, but the hooks themselves are very good, and there is the odd little solo here and there, which I'll talk about later. But again, really poppy, but with the nice crunchy guitars. The guitar tone on this record is absolutely killer. The whole production is absolutely killer. It's very pristine. There's great separation between the instruments. Everything is there. You can hear everything clear. It's really, really cool. And I also hear a little bit of Cheap Trick on that track too. I mean, I'm hearing all these things come in, right, as I'm listening to it. The third song is Kid. This is Weezer, like total Weezer song for me. Again, really well crafted, like all of them. It's not a bad tune. Again, the bass takes the riff. You got dynamics. Like one thing about this band that's really cool is I love their arrangements. There's always, because for me, I don't like songs when I'm listening to like the first 30 seconds and I already know what it's gonna end, how it's gonna end. These guys always have like, the reverse bridge, or sorry, verse chorus. They always throw in like an interesting bridge, and the way they bring back the main theme, like they always got stuff going on that kind of keeps you interested as a listener. So I love the arranging, and again, going back to these songs being very, very well crafted. Yeah. The fourth song, "Free to Roam." Love how the riff goes from that's one device that I love, when it goes kind of from an offbeat to the onbeat, right, during the verse part. And that is like, I mean, that super hooks into me for that, because I love that stuff. The singer, that singer, which I believe is a guy who plays guitar and he sings, right?
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
that guy's got like, if you were to like do like a, I don't know, American Idol search for the perfect voice for this type of music, he's got it. Like he's got an absolutely perfectly crafted voice for this type of material, and his vocals are stellar throughout this whole record. What else did I say? Yeah, perfect voice. And I hear a lot of, again, Stone Temple Pilots on Free to Roam. My favorite track is actually No You, which really I get a massive Nirvana vibe off of this song because it's got that dissonance that's super catchy though, you know what I mean? Like that, you know. Yeah, and the chords on the verse are killer. Total 90s vibe. Again, I love the bridge and I love the return back to the intro. Like that's just really good arrangement where, you know, it just everything, I mean, they're moving through parts, but it's seamless and it, you know what I mean, everything kind of works together beautifully, and it's, yeah, I know you, that is actually my favorite song on here. All You Are, another killer riff, great transition to the chords from the riff. Another, just another well crafted song. Like there's not really a dud to be found on this. If anything, you know, if you're not a fan of that era, if you're not, you know, you can't listen to a whole album of Weezer or Stone to any of those bands I mentioned, then you would not like this record. But if you like that kind of stuff, there's enough meat on these bones to keep you interested for the duration of the record for sure. That Call, oh man, that's a killer song. I really like that song. It's a, his voice, he's got that pained delivery,
Yeah.
you know, and then it just, because it starts off, you know, kind of with some cool chords, but then it comes in with those chord stabs, that donna, and then he's just like singing with his pained voice. Oh man, that is so hooky, man, so hooky. I love the changes on the bridge. These guys, I made a note here. These guys always do enough to what I was saying earlier on these songs to keep it interesting and avoid listener fatigue. Another example of great arranging, always a nice surprise. I love that. You know, it's like you're listening to this, okay, that's what it's going to be, and then boom, it goes into the chord stabs, then it goes into a bridge. It just keeps you locked in. Um, when She Smiles, um, for me, that's probably the weakest song on here. It is saved by, again, another fantastic hooky chorus, but for me, that was the weakest track on here. Again, a weak track is still a pretty, overall, a really good track. Meant to Be Me, that's another punky one. I hear a lot of Foo Fighters on that. You know, the Foo Fighter thing, you know, you got the big chords and then the guy singing over top, a melody line over top, really dense chords. That that's meant to be, that it's got that whole thing. I love the breakdown on it. These guys, they do the, when they do the nice breakdowns and they kind of bring it down, you know, that adds again that other listener fatigue thing, kind of takes you out of the big chords, gives you some dynamics in the track, which is always really really cool, you know, keeps you interested as a listener. Sinister, I love the change that they brought in some acoustic guitar, so that's, you know, again you know, something that they, first time it appears on the record. It's a mid-tempo tune. It's got some sweet acoustic playing and some really really nice chords on it. The vocal is killer. And this one actually does have a guitar solo. This is guitar solo number one, and we're into like song number 10. Because guitar solos were banned back then, you know, you weren't allowed
Yeah,
to.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Pain, track number 11, very dissonant opening lick, reminiscent of grunge, but then it's got some nice acoustic on the verses. It's kind of a heavy tune. This one is a little less poppy, a little more heavy. The bridge on it is again killer. And the last tune, well, there's two more, but I'll talk about them in a minute. The last, The Crown, which is track number 12, total Foo Fighters again. Big chords with the melody riding over top. Chord stabs is a nice transition. I like that. You know, like you're not just powering through chords. Like they'll do chord stabs and then they do the breakdown, and you know they do all these nice changes that keep you interested. Um, yeah, chord stabs, nice transition. Like another, and again another cool breakdown, enough to keep your interest. Song number 13 is 3 minutes of silence, and as advertised, it is 3 minutes of silence. I'm not kidding you. The song is called. So I'm listening to. I'm like, wait, is something wrong with my headphones? I'm like, I'm checking stuff. Like, it's
Probably
actual.
thinking they can't really be serious about this, right? But
Yeah.
Well, you
No.
didn't listen after the 3 minutes?
What happens after? No, I didn't. I no, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So
Oh, what did I miss?
after 3 minutes, they start just go into this groove and they do all the album thank yous over the
Oh
music.
no, that's track number 14. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's track number. Yeah, you got 3 minutes of silence, and then they just they're thanking I don't know everybody under the sun, right?
That's their thank you. Instead of their album credits, they thanked everybody personally by saying thank you to so and so over
that's
just
kind of
like a little
cool.
jam. So,
Right, yeah. But yeah, I mean they do this, you know, they do this style exceptionally well. It's like these guys are like totally they nail that style. If you like that style, and why these guys I mean, I read a little bit about it. Apparently, Plastique was the single and it didn't do anything. And then they kind of fizzled after that. You probably know more about that than I do, Jim.
yeah.
But this is the perfect record for that time period. And they should have been big. These guys should have been as big as the bands I mentioned before, like the Weezer or STP, Foo Fighters, name it. I mean, musicianship top notch, songwriting top notch, vocals top notch, just well crafted, well written songs. So thanks for letting me know about this band.
All right on. So yeah, I want to give you a little backstory on this band. So when I first moved to Hollywood in 1995 from New York, um, I got a job, and this guy had a studio in the back of his house
Mm.
called the Sandbox, and he rented a house right in West Hollywood, right across from the Peterson Auto Museum. And he rented the house, but I guess there was a little house in the backyard, and he turned it into a studio. And apparently, it's called the Sandbox because apparently to soundproof the studio, he poured sand into the walls when he built it.
Oh
And
man.
keep in mind, he was renting the house. He didn't even own it. But uh, I brought my fuzz bubble demo and I went there and someone said, why don't you talk to my buddy Rick Parker? He owns the studio. Maybe you can get a job there. And I ended up getting a job there as an engineer. And they all lived in the front house. So this guy Rick who owned the studio lived in the house. And one of the people that lived in the house was this guy Luke, who is the singer, guitar player for this band Silverjet.
Okay.
So I ended up, meeting them, and I went to see them play, and then I instantly loved them right off the bat, and I would go to all their gigs, and I'd go to the house and work in the studio, and Grant, the drummer, was also an engineer at the studio, so they did all their demos at this studio, and I ended up becoming friendly with Luke, and I'm still friends with him to this day, and I just thought they were one of the best things playing around Hollywood at the time. They had a really cool kind of Hollywood following. And the funny thing is, it's like Luke is a bunch of years younger than me. I guess he grew up in Santa Barbara. It was part of that whole kind of, sort of glam rock scene in Santa Barbara, and they moved to Hollywood to make it, because they loved Guns N' Roses and the New York Dolls and all that kind of stuff. And they got to Hollywood, and like all the glam rock had gone away, and it was like all of a sudden it was 90s,
Yeah.
so we kind of adapted. But if you really listen, like, to me, I always thought his voice sounded like a really completely non-annoying version of like sort of like Axl Rose. He's got a high raspy voice. He's very rock and roll and bluesy.
Yeah.
It's just this album is a product of this time. So, power pop and New York Dolls type of stuff. The funny thing that I noticed, and I'm supposed to meet up with Luke pretty soon, is that the overabundance of Alex Lifeson chords he uses. Like they're all over the record. I'm just
Yeah.
like, there's that F sharp, open F sharp chord. There's all this arpeggiated stuff. And I'm just like, man, he's doing Lifeson chords all over the place. And he had a white Gibson ES 335 that he played live. So, but I remember when I moved there and I saw them, I was immediately like, because the drummer, I think my first day at the studio, the drummer I met up with the drummer and he showed me the ropes to the studio. We went out to breakfast, and he told me about how to work in the studio and all this stuff. And he's a really great engineer. He engineered, I think, a lot of their demos. But uh, because Luke lived in the house, so I would just go to the studio, and Luke would be hanging out in the backyard or whatever, and it was just a scene. Like, and all the bands, all the alt rock bands that got signed in Hollywood at that time, they all did their demos at the Sandbox. So I saw people coming and going. I worked with Charlotte Caffey on a demo in there, and like all kinds of people, John Bryan, and lots of people came in there and recorded. But I absolutely love that band. They were a three-piece band. They always sounded amazing. Luke is
Yeah.
just a total natural on guitarist and singer and writer. And a bunch of him and a couple of his friends that all got record deals, and they all were kind of alt power pop bands, really talented guys. And one of another band called Summer Camp that got signed to Maverick, Madonna's label, and they all kind of put their records out, and the labels just kind of didn't know what to do with them, and they all just kind of, the records came and went.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of those great records, but Silverjet was my favorite of the bunch. And
Well, you could tell. Like, I mean, I said earlier, like they wrote,
oh, look, there it is. You have it.
Wow.
Oh, you're holding it up on your phone. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I don't have it. Yeah, I was just while you guys were talking, I was looking it up. So that's the only like full length they ever released then.
yeah, they had like one right before they released that. They put out like a 4-song vinyl EP, which vinyl was completely not cool at the time.
Right,
And
right.
they're just like, we're gonna do this anyway, and they did it. So they were always like that song "Kid" you were talking about. When I first heard it, it sounded to me like "Let Me In" by Rick Derringer. It had that kind of vibe, and Luke was a lot younger at the time. I'm like, man, this guy's so talented, and like,
Yeah.
great band. They always had people love them, around town. And,
Like I was
we
saying.
all, they got their record deal. I got my record deal with Fuzzbubble soon after. We all got our record deals, and then nothing happened. Um, but
You can
great
tell when
guitar
you're listening
player,
to
really.
this, right? You can tell, like, I mean, I said earlier, like, it's a song that Green Day wish they could have wrote, because you could tell, like, the level of musicianship, like,
Yeah,
that these guys were capable of was just insane. Like, they could have basically done anything, but like I said, they crafted an album for the time, and they hit, like, they checked every box. Like, it's like, we're gonna make an album in this genre, but we're gonna like destroy the genre. Like, we're gonna crush it, and that's exactly what they did. And yeah, I mean, the playing, the riffs, like I said, those really cool the chord changes, the arrangements, like you could tell, like these guys were like on another level, right? It's almost like they were kind of dropping their level to play this kind of music, but they're capable of a hell of a lot more.
I agree with that. I think because I think they came from a more hard rock background, uh, and not an alt punk background. Like, they had all their playing in check. Like, Luke's a fantastic guitar player and singer. So,
What was he playing on this? Was it a telly most of these tracks? Do you remember?
when I see pictures of him, he puts pictures on Facebook now. I see him playing a telly a lot. But back when I used to see them, he always had the cream white ES 335. And
Okay.
that was always just like, that's why when I hear the, I'm like, I got to ask him, it's like, he must have liked Alex Lifeson. That he uses that F sharp, open F sharp chord so many times on this record. I'm
Yeah.
just like, um, and yeah, it's weird. It's like, I think they kind of alternate up their sound, because I think he came from more of the, like, if you listen to the original demos, of these songs, they're a little more hard rock sounding. They're not like,
Okay.
when I heard the record, I'm like, wow, they really cleaned the guitars up a bunch. Like, it wasn't quite as um, rock and roll and dirty on this record. Like, you could hear, like, I think there's a lot of telly, and I think the guitar tones are really great.
Oh, guitar tones are killer, man. That's yeah.
Yeah.
The production on this album is top notch.
Yeah,
It's
I think it sounds good. I think it's underproduced, in terms of, they kept it really kind of dry and no frills. And that's after seeing them so many times and knowing the demo, I had all the demos. I was like, wow, they kind of, it's very stripped down. Like, it's kind of a little raw and underproduced, which was the cool thing in 1995 and 96 and 97 to do, right? Like, no more big production. It was all just, punk
Big
rock
Ricky
and all
Bobby
that. So
Drums.
I think you nailed it when you said it's definitely a record for that time. Um, and I think it was approached that way, like, oh, the label's probably like, you need to sound more like this. And I don't know, like the demos are a little more hard rocking than that. And live, they were a little more hard rocking than what turned out on the record. I remember listening to the record and going like, wow, they kind of tamed it down a little bit, but I still love the record because those songs are so
Songs
great.
are killer. They're killer, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
there's like easily three singles, four singles on this, no problem.
yeah, I my favorite was "All You Are." That song "All You Are" because of that great like kind of arpeggiated guitar riff that he did. I was like, I love listening to that.
Yeah.
And Kid was another one. But yeah, it was. I figured I got to give someone that record because people I think need to be aware of that record, even though it's whatever 25 years old, and
Hmm.
Luke's doing different things now and stuff like that. But it's a record I think that should have been heard and didn't get to.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Should have got more play for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Hack, it sounds like you like this one. Would you consider buying this Silver Jet album on disc
Yeah.
or however
I
you can
would
get
say
it?
this. I'd say this would be a buy.
Cool.
Yeah, if I can find it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I went on Amazon because I lost mine. I think I've got it off of eBay. I got it off of eBay. Someone sold it
Yeah, I
off.
was just looking it up on Discogs, so it's available. So
It's
Oh,
available.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
yeah, you can find it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Jim, what were you given by Mr. Hack here?
So I was given a Canadian band called Chalk Circle, and the album is called Mending Wall. Released in 1987. Um, I guess on app when I listened to it on Apple Music, so Apple Music called it new wave, which I don't know. It's a little post new wave to me. It's uh, the vibe that I got from it uh, is definitely that kind of mid to late '80s British pop. When I say pop, new wave pop, like I think the Simple Minds a little bit, Tears for Fears a little bit, In Excess a lot. I hear a lot of In
Money
Excess
Men.
and the Alarm.
Mhm.
Who I was it's weird. So like in 1987, this was the music I was basically avoiding. 'Cause that was Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all of that stuff. But here and there, I would buy a record that sounded like this. Like I bought the Alarm. I forget the one with Rescue Me on it, and I love that record. I bought In Excess Kick because I love that record. I mean, that record had undeniable songs. They were everywhere. So when I hear this record, I think of that, and it's funny because is the record has a very 80s sound, but without all the gratuitous huge reverbs and gated reverbs and stuff. So it sounds from the time, but not where you go, oh God, if it wasn't for all that gated reverb and awful 80s production, it would be a better record. Like it has just the right amount of it without without it being, like I said, gratuitous or too much.
Yeah.
So like I said, the vocalist kind of has that kind of maybe like Roland from Tears for Fears or Mike Peters from The Alarm, like that kind of big English kind of vocal. Um, Again, not stuff I listened to back then, but at the age I'm at now, going back and like, wow, this is really good. Like it's different. And if you're a fan of those bands, I don't know, did this have any like singles in Canada when it came
Oh
out?
yeah.
So it was a big radio
Guys-
record in Canada.
Yeah, these guys were there. These guys were on the radio. These guys were touring nationally. They were simulcast concerts on TV when they used to
Wow,
do
I've never
those
heard of them.
back in the
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they really made an impact in the U.S., but they were huge here. They had a good run here, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, because I'm thinking probably some of that has to do with there's the Canadian radio law, right? Where you got to pay a certain amount of
That's right.
Canadian artists.
Yeah,
So we didn't have that. We didn't, obviously we're in America. It didn't get here,
Yeah.
but bands it certainly fit in with those bands. Like for me, I hear In Excess a lot, just because like lots of great. First of all, the record's produced really well.
Yes.
Beautiful sounds on this record. Again, they didn't overdo the reverb, which for 1987 was very easy to do. Everyone had this giant gated reverb snares. Like it's all pretty natural sounding, but with that really clean 80s sparkly, like everything sounds is recorded really well. It almost sounds like Bob Clearmountain could have mixed one of these, tracks because it really has all that great clarity. I thought the record's really good. The one thing I that to me when I listened to it, I was like, okay, there's the really big super hooky song, like hey 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 hey, like the Simple Minds are like there isn't one of those on this record. Like there's good songs, but there's not that hit you over the head super hooky song. I guess the hookiest would be, and I'll go into the tracks now. This morning as this morning, and that's Mourning. I love it. It has that kind of. It starts off with that really driving eighth note uh, drum beat, sort of like We Got the Beat, but slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a single.
yeah, okay, that's what I figured. It's the lead off track. It has a really the drums really drive the track really in a cool way. Um, and again, when I hear the chorus, um, it and the song kick in, it really reminds me of In Excess, like the Kick album In Excess, in a good way. Because I remember like in the height of my metaldom, I bought In Excess Kick
Height
because
of
I
my
like
meddledom.
yeah. I mean, that was like 1986. I was listening to hardcore and metal, but I remember I going out and buying Kick by NXS, so it kind of has that vibe, the big kind of English sounding vocal, um, and so again, great production, great guitar on this. The keyboards like not an overabundance of synth, just enough to
Mhm.
add that flavor, because the guitar was a lot of clean, kind of jangly, compressed guitar, like that real 80s guitar, but everything's really sits nice in the mix. So I like that song quite a lot. Um, Going to song number two, Artificial Sweetener.
Oh,
Um, the the best part of the song is that creepy keyboard melody at the top of the song. It's almost has like a James Bond, it's like sort of strings. I was like, damn, that's a great melody, that they do. The one thing I thought about this song was there was a missed opportunity because when the chorus kicks in, you're kind of like, oh, this is the chorus. Like I thought, like, wow, if they put some really big kind of caranging guitars in there in the chorus and big open chords, it would have opened the chorus up and made it more, uh, made it more of a like a big hook.
mm.
Um, but the song is good. I just thought, like, wow, man, they should have just put some big guitars in it. Not necessarily distorted guitars, but just kind of big, jangly guitars open. You know. Um, but that keyboard line, man, is such a great. It's definitely a cool song. Um, what I have for What Counts is the next song. Again, more great jangly guitars. Uh, this one kind of reminded me a bit of The Alarm, who I really like. Uh, those are cool, some cool guitar solos in here. Just the one that had the acoustic guitar solo.
Oh man, you know what? I can't remember.
Okay, okay. Um,
I can't remember. I just remember this album was really really cool.
yeah, it's definitely a cool album.
I knew it'd be an album that probably you never heard of because it's Canadian.
No, man, definitely didn't make its way down to the U.S. at all, or on MTV. I guess you guys had Much Music at the
Dude, they
time.
were all over Much Music.
Okay,
All over Much Music. Yeah.
I think this almost sounds to me like Canada's answer to In Excess. Um, it's that style. I don't think they necessarily sound like them, but they have a lot of that same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Um, so as for what counts, yeah. So I had a nice jangly guitars in that one. Um, just a cool sound, very cool sound. The next song, and another thing about this record, there's a lot of styles in it. I guess it would go under the heading of new wave pop, 80s pop, but like they brought in a lot of different styles. Like in this song, starts out with this kind of bongos and like this kind of jazzy acoustic guitar. Um, and there's a cool violin solo in it, which is again, a kind of out of left field, but like, wow, there's a really bitchin' violin solo in this, and the song gets kind of bigger and bigger sonically at the end. That was a cool song, NIMBY, which is, I guess, not in my backyard, right? That's what that means. So, song 5, they did a cover of 20th Century Boy, the T Rex song.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the song starts out, it's kind of like this swingy kind of Delta bluesy, and like, wow, that's how they're doing this. And then all of a sudden it breaks and they go, like the first verse is just kind of them doing it with acoustic guitar, and it's kind of Delta bluesy and sort of shuffly. And then they just break into the song the way you would hear it by T Rex. Yeah. And it's a good version. It's very sort of true to the original. I don't think there's any topping the original, but it's a damn good version. Really cool. They just kind of played it like the original version of the song, but the beginning of it, the way they started it was different, so it kind of threw you off a little bit. Cool, I dug it. So okay, song number 6. There's only 10 songs on this record, which is cool. I don't like records that have too many songs, so like 10 to 12, good. This song, Empty Park, called.
Love that song.
What a great bass sound on this song, man. Like a couple of songs had really amazing
I'm
bass.
surprised you're just mentioning the bass now, because from the very first song, gong, 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 gong,
Yeah,
gong,
yeah.
that bass sound is sick, man.
I don't know. I looked to see who produced it. Like, it looks like the guitar player produced this record. Yeah. It seems like that's what I read in the liner notes. Or at least the producer played guitar on the record. So, but yeah, got a great bass sound, like that real kind of grinding 80s bass sound.
Nice.
Very cool. That song is a little more danceable, but not like annoying danceable. It's just like it's more of a danceable. That would be a little more new wavy to me in terms of how it's danceable. But that's a very cool song. Song number 7, Hands. Again, the bass sound totally stuck out to me in this one.
That one I remember.
Yeah, it had a strummy, kind of cool acoustic strummy thing going on. Great bass sound. Another cool track. Let's see, number 8, Park Island. So this was kind of a ballad.
Love it.
Really beautiful recording, great sound and song, nice production. It was a great song, Park Island. That's all I have for that. I really dug it though. And song number 9 is called The Village. This was a decent song. I didn't really dig the kind of careless whisper sax that they had on this. Again, In Excess used saxophone, so it was kind of interesting. Something you don't really hear. People don't really use saxophone in rock anymore. So again, the younger me was just like, oh, saxophone. The older me is like, oh, that's kind of cool, But they put the reverb on it, so it had that careless whisper sax vibe, But it was a cool song. I dug it. Again, with the sax, it gave it a little bit of that In Excess type of thing, a little bit. And so the last song is called Who Can Say? And this is really just kind of ends the album. It's kind of a somber piano ballad, has some strings in there. I thought the song's 5 minutes long. I thought they could have taken a minute and a half off of it, and it kind of overstayed its welcome because it was 5 minutes and it was just piano and strings. Really nice somber song, but just to me, it could have been edited down a bit. Especially when you're ending the record, it went on a little bit long, but it was a great song. Just a little long for me.
For me, that record starts to tail off at the end.
Yeah. The last couple songs not as good as the first,
the first
5 or 6.
Yeah.
So side 1 probably was amazing, and side 2 was like, sort of like what would you would call like a front-loaded record.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's a little bit front loaded, but it. Listen, from song five is 20th Century Boy. Empty Park, Hands. All those are side two songs. They're all good.
Yeah,
Just not quite as. I guess it starts off more exciting and just kind of notches down.
yeah. Like this,
Um,
I think this morning was the lead off single. I think there was a second single, and I can't remember. It might have been Artificial Sweetener.
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. That song sounds like it was a single, but to me,
And that one,
again, like when the chorus kicks in, you just like
oh, the
it kind of.
chorus is killer on that.
It's a good chorus, but I was like,
Yeah, you want the big guitars, yeah.
it should. It to me, it would have elevated the chorus up, because when the chorus kicks in, you're about two bars in, you're like, oh, this is the chorus. Like it didn't have an impact as a chorus to me because it has a key change. So that was my one critique overall on the record was really like that one song. Like, man, they should have like elevated the chorus with something bigger like guitars or whatever, maybe a keyboard. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I think this is a very cool record. Sonically, again, 1987, really good sounding record, not overdone on the 80s-ness. It
Yeah,
kind of almost had um it's almost a little rootsy. There's a lot of rootsy instrumentation on it.
yeah.
And
Island, for example, right? Nice acoustic riff. I mean,
yes,
kind of,
great acoustic. Nothing was
yeah,
because when you think 1987, man, that's the height of like everything 80s overblown production. And this didn't do that. It kind of it had the 80s kind of sound, stylistically, the vocals, the way the vocalist phrase and the sound of his voice, nice reverbs, but not overblown production, just like the right amount where like you listen to it today and it you don't go, oh God, it sounds so
no, it doesn't
80s.
sound. I mean, it doesn't. Maybe the style, but the production doesn't sound
Right.
dated.
It's
And the
it's
thing is,
timeless sounding production to me.
exactly. And the thing
Yeah.
with that record too, when it came out, like just kind of you nailed it on the head. It was just like so much. It was a cut above all the other crap that was being
Yeah.
played because of it was all overproduced and super glossy and whatever.
Right.
And then these guys come in with like that thumping bass and whatever, and it's like they sound like a band. You can hear the instruments, not all this polish and reverb and
Yes.
you
You
know.
can really hear the instrumentation
Yeah, yeah.
clean.
And the
It's
guy's
very
got a great voice. I love the voice on and
he's got a good voice.
and a crazy good guitar player too. On the
Yeah.
parts were like
Yeah.
bang
The
on.
guitar in this record is really cool and interesting. Wasn't necessarily, there's a few solos, but I think the arrangements and the way they orchestrate the guitars and the sounds they use, a
Yeah,
lot of different stuff going on. So
yeah.
it never gets boring where you're just like, oh, this all sounds like the same thing.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
Never gets bored.
Right. It doesn't get boring. There's
Yeah,
enough variation in the way the songs are written and arranged that it's like, oh, the song starts out with a little bongo thing.
yeah,
The song starts out with a really driving drum thing. The drummer in this band is great. He really propels the band through the whole thing.
yeah.
So everybody in the band's really good, and the sounds are great. So I think they're a cool band. I don't know what happened to them, but
They put out, I think, they put out a couple of records. I don't
I
know, maybe
think I saw 3 on Apple Music.
three, and then yeah, they just kind of fell off the planet. I don't know if they broke up or they just couldn't make it. I break it out of Canada, but I'm telling you, back then, like off of the strength of that debut record, they were really doing well. They
Yeah.
were on the radio all the time. They were touring across Canada. We used to have this thing here called simulcast, right? Which is like they would take typically a big Canadian band, and on a Saturday night they'd record the show, and then they'd air it on a radio station, so you could listen to it on the radio and watch. You know what I mean? If you wanted,
Yeah.
I think
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got
like FM stereo simulcast. So it'd be on TV and you could hear it on the radio. And
Oh,
these
yeah, I
guys
remember they did them doing that. Yeah.
did that, right? And those were like the best bands, the local, not massive bands, but locally, the bigger bands did that, right?
Right. So, when you heard them, do you have any sort of comparison to what you think they sounded like other bands? I mean, Because
Well,
I'm like I said, I'm hearing those 3 or 4 bands that
uh,
English in excess and that kind of thing.
you mentioned In Excess a lot. I don't get the In Excess so much. I get more like stuff like more the British stuff, like Echo and the Bunnymen or
Simple Minds.
Simple Minds, Susie and the Banshees. No, no, not really.
What about like Tears for Fears?
Tears for Fears, yeah, that's a good comparison because the thing is, like, what they have in common with Tears for Fears is the bass is like right in your face,
Yeah,
right?
and
Tears
the
for Fears had
vocalists.
that have the heavy bass going as well, right? You know,
Yeah, I
but
think for me, when I hear In Excess, is in the guitar sounds and the guitar sounds and just the overall sound of the record. In Excess, same thing. That Kick album wasn't grossly overproduced with tons of reverb. It just had real sort of organic sounds with a little bit of reverb added. So this to me, because they use piano and the drum sound, it all kind of to me sounded like that sonically. I think more than
instrumentation
anything.
wise, like, yeah. Now that you mention that, yeah,
Yeah.
I could
Um,
see that now.
not a looks is not a bad thing to do in 1987. Again, I was
Oh.
super metal in 1987, but
Yeah,
Isn't it great when
occasionally
as you get older, you can kind of appreciate things that you couldn't 30, 40 years ago,
it's
right?
refreshing to hear this now because this sound I was familiar with, but this band, no, like I don't know any of the songs. I've never heard them before in my life.
I
And
no,
but
I
they
was
have a
like
big
you,
fan.
Jim. I had the jean jacket, the hair down to here, all that. But
Yeah,
I like listening. Like I was heavily into Prince back then too, man. Like
yeah,
I had a pretty anything that caught my ear was cool. I mean, I did like the heavier stuff, obviously. Like back then, when Scorpions and Kiss and Motley
yeah,
Crue and Accept, and those were the bands kind of I was into. But
yeah. I was all metal all day, but
yeah,
occasionally,
I took a break from metal because I can't listen to the same thing all the time. I need because I get bored. I got to listen to something different. And these
well,
guys,
I hit a wall with it in 1988 and 89. And then I went on, I got into other things, but like in 1987, occasionally, but like even when I was really into metal, there were like 3 or 4 records that broke through my wall. That alarm record with Rescue Me on it. I heard that on the radio. I was like, wow, that's cool. The Smithereens,
mm,
Girl Like You. I was like, wow, that's cool. Um, and there were like a couple of others, but otherwise it was like all about metal for me. So when I'd hear Tear for Fears and I'm like, okay, everybody loves to rule the world. I thought it was a great song, so that got through to me. A
the
couple other things here and there, but not a lot, man. I was like super metal guy in '87.
Cult was the band for me that kind of had one foot in both because they started off with the Love record, right, and
Right.
then they went to Electric, and then they went to Sonic. So I was around Sonic Temple time.
I
Probably,
bought Sonic
probably at that
Temple.
point, the Cult still is one of my favorite bands. That was like you
Yeah,
know because again they were heavy but they were different than the say Scorpions or all these other things.
yeah.
Oh,
They
for
had
sure.
this whole other thing going on that I really and I still love the Cult to this day.
Sonic Temple was the record I bought because that was a rock album. That was a hard
Yeah,
rock.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, Pete, did you like? Okay, so Pete, in 1987, were you like me, where you was just mostly like honed in on metal?
Yeah. Yeah. I
And,
mean, in 87, I was all into thrash and like heavy, heavy stuff. And yeah, there wasn't much that I was listening to that wasn't in that kind of bracket. I had a couple bands that I still liked from the 70s, like ELO and Wings and Steve Miller Band, the Eagles. I still would listen to that stuff a little bit and some prog rock, but it wasn't until like 90 or 91 that I really started getting into other stuff. Then I
yeah,
got the Queen Bug and Marillion and all sorts of old prog. And I kind of like, metal was dying sort of. And I was like, all right, time for me to try some new things. And that's what I did. So
yeah,
I was just a couple of years past you.
yeah. I kind of it's like 1988, 89. I think like when I remember like 88, like the Dan Reed Network. I got into them. I got into Living Color. I got into 24/7 Spies, and like weird stuff that was kind of breaking out because metal was just kind of at that point you'd open Metal Edge magazine, right, and you just see like all these bands that look like Britney Fox, and you're just like, is that all there is now? It's just, everyone's just, it was starting to eat itself.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
got kind of burnt at the end of the '80s with metal, and I started listening to other weird things, you
Yeah, a
know.
lot of us did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jim, would you consider buying this album maybe as a stream online thing, or
If I saw this record in the store, like the CD or whatever, I would pick it up because
cool.
I would love to hear this. You know, I'm listening to it on Apple Music, which is, I bet this on CD sounds a lot better than it does on Apple Music.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, I'm not sure if Apple Music is sonically, because it's a sonically good sounding record. So I would probably, if I saw it in the store or whatever, you know, I'd probably pick it up. It's a good
Cool.
record, you know.
And the name of the band, the full title of the album again?
Chalk Circle, and the album is called Mending Wall.
Cool. And Hack's yours as well?
Silver Jet, and the album is Pull Me Up, Drag Me Down.
Cool. All right, because I know people are going to be asking. So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we got two very positive reactions here to their assignments and two possible purchases. It's always a good thing. So I want to thank you both for doing your homework assignment over the last week and a half or so. And we'll be seeing both of these gentlemen back here on the channel in just a couple of weeks for another round of the Guitarist Corner. Absolutely. So the next episode, we haven't announced it yet, but we're going to now. So that basically right there is we're going to be talking about, along with Butch and Chris and Eric and Sean, we're going to be talking about our favorite songs that have the coolest use of the wah-wah pedal by the guitar player. So it's all about the wah-wah coming up in just a couple of weeks in mid-May, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't seen it, because it is Sunday and it ran a couple days ago, make sure you watch over on Hack's channel. Martin Popoff, myself, and Hack, we talked about our favorite 5 Who albums, so that just ran the other day. So please go back and check that out. That was a fun show. And visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Guitar Hack and Jim Bacchi, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday for album homework assignment. That will be myself going up against Chris Allo, so stay tuned for that, and all sorts of other stuff happening here this week, including the Hudson Valley Squares tomorrow. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Cheers.